street photography is this privacy violating, aggressive, macho, paparazzi, unethical kind of photography that some people like to think it is, but it is not.
And unfortunately, there's a perception and paranoia that street photography is this thing where you're like going around molesting people with a camera, but that's absolutely not what's happening.
All right, 3 words to describe yourself.
I'd say mysterious, ambiguous, and indescribable.
I'd say 1, 2, and 3.
If you weren't a photographer, what career would you pursue?
I don't know. I mean, I was looking at being like a history teacher at one point, and then I got into photography. If I was smart, I would have gone for like a multimedia degree or something that does photography and videography and graphic design and all that kind of stuff.
I think if I wasn't following the pursuit of photography, the thing that I originally wanted to be was like a news cameraman. I guess I'd be like a videographer now. But yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. So what's the strangest place that photography's ever taken you, Gavin?
I'm gonna say Pennsylvania in general, like, and I mean that in a good way as well. Like, Pennsylvania is probably kind of the quirkiest, strangest place I've been to, certainly of any state that I've been to, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah, I'd agree. Pennsylvania is really strange and interesting, and it's a place that we're going to continue to explore. So we look forward to doing that.
A lot of it, it's like going on an Easter egg hunt going out there.
What are 3 iconic photographers that have inspired you the most?
So I'd say on my list, out of many, Trent Park, Alex Soth, and Todd Hido.
I would say for me, Martin Parr, Mark Cohen, and the fashion photographer Guy Bourdain really inspired my aesthetic and, the type of pictures I like taking. Rank in order what is the most important to you, light, composition, or subject?
I'd probably say subject, composition, and light. Although, things like a really good composition can make a really boring subject good. But I mean, like generally speaking, I guess subject's most important. So, what is your go-to editing playlist?
So for me, like kind of instrumental stuff, like stuff composed by Hans Zimmer or other instrumental kind of bands, like God is an Astronaut's a big one for me. And kind of lo-fi music, easy to kind of listen, kind of atmospheric music really helps the best, I would say. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree to all that, and ambient jazz
Mhm.
works a lot as well as like vaporwave, anything that's kind of chill, and not too distracting and kind of relaxing. Do you prefer a perfect but mundane photo or an imperfect but outrageously authentic one?
Probably the outrageously authentic picture.
Yeah, same.
I think that's a lot more
That's
exciting
what most
something.
people would say.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Can photography truly change people's minds on controversial topics?
I mean, I think there's always examples in history where this has happened, where you've gotten like a particular picture, and it doesn't have to like necessarily be a good Magnum type of picture, but you do get these iconic images that change the course of public opinion. Like also, you can think of like, for example, the Abu Ghraib pictures
Mm.
from the Iraq War was really one of the things that helped kind of turn the tide of opinion.
Again, there's also that Trump assassination photo
Yeah,
could have helped him get elected.
that was a massive uh propaganda hit for him.
Yeah, even if it was unintentional, but it looked pretty intentional. But anyways,
Yeah, who knows?
who knows? Do you?
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite camera? Why?
Okay, the all-time favorite, even though I don't use them anymore, is the Ricoh GR series that had been like my workhorse for several years. It's not even the compactness thing, although that's nice. It's just there's something that you kind of get out of the pictures
Especially the
with it.
original first two, the
Yeah.
APS-C size one, not so much the third one, but Yeah, I mean, I agree. For me, it's the exact same thing. The Ricoh GR2 for both of us became like our main workhorse with much of our work. Unfortunately, neither of us are using them anymore because both of ours broke
For stupid
for
reasons.
stupid, unreliable reasons. I hope you're listening, Rico. And so we had to go for and purchase more reliable, robust cameras.
We're Fuji people now.
We're Fuji people now, but
Okay.
we still love you, Rico. Just make a camera that's not a disposable one. Thank you. A technical mistake you love to make deliberately.
There's probably a few of them, but for example, one thing I'll do to kind of get things deliberately bleached out and overexposed is I might, for example, switch the camera to priority and like shoot it with flash. So basically, the ISO's too high, the aperture's too open, so it just kind of bleaches things out, which I think can look great in the right situations. And, if you're using film, for example, sometimes there's nothing wrong with a good light leak. I remember having cameras where the seal was a bit messed up on the film back, and I would deliberately expose that to the sun a little bit to get a bit of light leakage in there. What's the most overrated place that you've shot?
The most overrated and most disappointing place I've ever gone to take pictures where I assumed or thought it would have been plentiful and full of photographs has definitely been Washington, D.C. It's really surprisingly sparse, I mean, like quiet. There's a lack of interesting characters. It's like really spread out. Comparison to other capital cities I've been through in the world or other major cities, it's definitely been the most disappointing. I definitely thought DC was going to be a lot more interesting than it is, as far as the perspective of a photographer. What is a horror film that really unsettled you?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with Threads. If you don't know what that is, Threads was sort of a TV movie that the BBC put out in 1984, and it's essentially a docudrama about what would happen if a nuclear war really did break out. And holy fuck, at the end of that movie, if you weren't terrified of nuclear war, you will be at the end of it. I mean, that movie is bleak as fuck. I mean, I highly recommend it, but it is bleak. And it will definitely, if you didn't have a strong opinion about nuclear weapons, you will after watching that one.
Yeah, for me, one of the favorite films to mention on for an unsettling horror film would be 28 Days Later. The film, at the time of first viewing it, was so full of energy and the way the rage virus worked and the way that it was shot in this kind of very kind of almost kind of candid, kind of random, tense manner really created an intense sense of fear. And, it was kind of a film that came out after September 11th. For there a period of time, there's a sense of something like that could be, become a reality. Okay, so three films every photographer should watch. What are those?
Okay, so I'll go with they're all science fiction movies. So I'll go with 2001 Stanley Kubrick. I'll go next with Children of Men, which is actually my all-time favorite movie. And I'll go with a movie that probably not a lot of people have heard of. And it's not a perfect movie, but it looks and sounds great, is Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Yeah, for me, it's a hard choice, but I would go for Blade Runner, obviously, Thelma and Louise, and Alien. All of these are Ridley Scott movies. Remember when he was a fantastic director, but yeah, those are three great films to watch. So, what makes you happy when you're photographing, and what makes you nervous?
In a general sort of way, what makes me happy is just when you're out doing photography, just that general sense of kind of being out in the world, exploring it, kind of being in touch with the world and not just sort of in your own head. Even if I don't come back with anything, what makes me nervous? There's always that nervousness about kind of maybe unwanted confrontation or a bad interaction, but that kind of just comes with the territory of street photography that's always a risk and it doesn't really happen all that often.
Yeah, for me, it's like when you're out photographing and when you're in it, like you end up in a place or a street where like the light's right or there's like interesting subjects around and you're like, holy crap, like I'm in it, like I'm in a toy store now. You're out there just really enjoying it, potentially getting pictures, and you just have that excitement. You're going to go home and have photographs to look at and photographs to work on. And like, that's such a magical feeling. But like what sucks is like, when you accidentally piss someone off or you're in a bad mood and everyone else is in a bad mood. Because, as photographers, we don't have any intention to upset people, or piss people off, but it comes to the territory. Sometimes feel like you never completely get used to it. And it still always sucks every time you have someone take you the wrong way.
Ritual you perform before shooting.
So before shooting, I like to get my inspiration by going on to like Flickr or watching some YouTube videos. Like there's great videos with Joel Meyerowitz or Mark Cohen or other great photographers like God, what are some great Harry Gerard, you know what I mean? These types of photographers and like just watching that and watching how they shoot and listening to their philosophies can really help get you in the mood to go out there and take pictures. What about yourself?
I'd pretty much agree. I mean, like if you're smart, that's what you would do before you go out, or anything you can do to kind of also clear your head and relax you and put you kind of and this sort of kind of maybe meditative or heightened awareness, relaxed state that you kind of need to really function as a photographer to kind of be open and relaxed and not kind of stuck in your own head or whatever.
Have you ever used photography as a personal therapy? Can you explain why and how?
Yeah, just in a general sort of way. I think just the way photography makes you sort of interact with the world in a different, more positive, more curious way than if you didn't do photography is therapy enough in and of itself. I would say photography helps keep me sane, certainly compared to like what I would be like if I wasn't doing it and I was just like inside all the time, doing another kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been like a very important vehicle, especially like trying to get through Lyme disease, and just dealing with all the suffering from that. Like you lose a lot of things, and sometimes because you don't feel very well, you don't because the way the symptoms work, you don't feel like you can really socialize much. You know what I mean? But with street photography, you can go out there by yourself and like just like put a pair of headphones on or whatever and just focus on the photos. And like, I'd find like, when I'm out there with a very painful migraine or feeling dizzy or having body pain or whatever, photography would help me push through those things. And it gave me kind of like, again, a vehicle for my mind. Again, I can't imagine where I would mentally be right now without photography. I really can't. It's been so important. I think it's a very important thing for a lot of people mentally. Anybody who's doing street photography on a regular basis, I think it's a therapeutic thing for them, for sure. So, what do you do to get out of a creative block?
When it comes to street photography or just photography in general, you can go out there looking at other people's work, or photo books, or find somebody on Flickr, Instagram, or whatever, and eventually you do come across somebody. You can also just travel out to somewhere else and shoot there. And I don't mean like you have to get on a plane and go somewhere, but if you have a car, sort of like going to shoot in the city or region that you normally shoot in, take a road trip somewhere else, drive somewhere else like a couple hours away. And it doesn't have to be a city. You could just wander random back roads.
If your photography was a song, what genre would it be?
I'd probably say like acid rock or
Stoner rock. Yeah,
like neo psychedelia, whatever.
yeah, I would
You
agree.
know, kind of say a little something heavy, a lot of fuzz, a lot of effects, trippy, that kind of thing.
If your life was a movie, which actor would play you?
I don't really know. Maybe Ewan McGregor. I don't know.
I'd say for me, probably Matthew McConaughey, especially after watching Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah, but I really don't know.
Yeah. So, what's the biggest misconception about street photography?
I would say the sort of misconception that street photography is this privacy violating, aggressive, macho, paparazzi, unethical kind of photography that some people like to think it is. But if they actually bothered looking into it, they find it is not.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like again, unfortunately, there's a perception and paranoia that street photography is this thing where you're like going around molesting people with a camera, but that's absolutely not what's happening. But yeah, that's probably the biggest misconception I can think of.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, just fucking ignore those people.
Yeah, fuck 'em.
Persona non grata.
Which historical era would you avoid photographing?
I would say the Precambrian because there'd be fuck all to shoot unless you had a really good macro lens.
Yeah, I think for me it would be like maybe the 1500s during the Black Plague, because that would suck. So yeah, I'd probably avoid those time periods.
Famous photographer you'd gladly have dinner with.
I think a photographer I'd love to have dinner with, due to their high intellect and the amount of things they have to say and just their perspective and insight, is Joel Meyerowitz. He's an incredible, not just an incredible photographer, but an incredible speaker. He could talk you into bed easily. I'm sure he's got many stories. Who would you go?
Yeah, no, I agree with Meyerowitz because I feel like he's kind of like the kindly grandfather of street photography. I would kind of say people like Alex Soth or Todd Heidel, like I not only like their pictures, but I love listening to them talk about photography. Like every time I listen to a podcast where they interview like people like this, like I always come away feeling inspired. So yeah, like somebody like that who not only who makes great pictures but also has like a great chat about photography.
Who's a photographer who you think you would argue with?
I'm kind of thinking ones like, people like Philip Griffiths Jones that like back in the 80s or something try to block Martin Parr from getting into Magnum because Martin Parr was doing color work or he didn't get Martin Parr's style and stuff. And it's, yeah, just kind of, people like that just seem kind of up their ass a bit about
Bit of
it.
a dick.
Yeah, kind of a bit of a snobby dick. I don't think I'd get along with them. The most absurd or ridiculous comment received online about your photo.
Well, I can't remember the exact most absurd one, but the ones that really piss me off are when people insinuate that my pictures are posed or staged. It really is annoying when people suggest that. Obviously, people that are not used to or in street photography will look at your photographs and go, "Oh, this must be staged," and it really pisses you off.
Yeah, because you go through so much work
So
to
much work.
kind of get these candid pictures. I would say for me, or at least picking like from recent examples, it's like, we've gone off and shot like, pictures of like Trump rallies and MAGA people and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you get fucking people who insinuate that by posting pictures of these events or these people that you're somehow supporting or platforming Trump or MAGA or whatever just by the simple act of showing a picture of it.
Yeah, those people are dicks.
And yeah, no, it's just ridiculous. Like as if you're gonna like magic MAGA away by
Not
not
photograph
showing.
it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like kind of probably one of the stupidest attempts at no platforming ever. Common photographic belief you consider absolutely false.
So it's maybe not extremely common, but you sometimes have individuals that say like you shouldn't edit RAW files. And like the misunderstanding there is like a digital RAW file is actually made to be edited. Like, and when I say edit, I don't mean adding or taking away things on Photoshop. What I mean is like adjusting light and contrast and shadows and whatnot. And for example, when people were shooting film and they were shooting Porta 400 or they're shooting Kodak Gold or they were shooting Kodachrome, all of those versions and types of films had kind of pre-adjusted kind of saturation, pre-adjusted contrast and everything else. So that kind of already kind of gave the image a look, right? Along with the camera's lens. Whereas a raw file is like just straight data, right? And you're supposed to take that data and adjust things, you know what I mean? So that I find that a little bit annoying when people suggest you can't edit or shouldn't edit a raw file when they're literally made to have, they're made to be edited. What is a common photographic belief you consider absolutely false?
The one that like it doesn't count as street photography if there's nobody in the picture. Because I think if you focus too much on particular element of a picture, it just becomes another stupid rule that kind of blinds you to just the act of seeing. Because there's actually a lot of great pictures that, street pictures, for example, I would consider them street pictures that might not have any people in them. You can think of, for example, a lot of like Stephen Shore's pictures. If you just kind of go like, well, I don't care about that picture because it doesn't have a person in it, for example, then you're kind of blinding yourself to good pictures. It's like, there's a lot of rules that you should just kind of, or beliefs that you should just kind of ignore in order to allow yourself to see.
So, what is advice you'd give to your younger photographer self?
I would say, just for like job market purposes, get into video as well.
I would agree with that. Also, I think presently I would tell myself to probably stay in Edinburgh instead of moving to the US. But yeah, what is the uncomfortable truth about the photography community that nobody wants to admit?
I don't know if this is one that nobody wants to admit, but I think it basically goes the algorithm has fucked us and created a false economy, so to speak, that doesn't necessarily reward quality. And yeah,